You can do it. Computer. Testing technology. Although it does say it's already streaming, so that's the that's the heads up.
I was wondering how fast it was going to take you to notice that popped up on the top of the screen, but that's okay. You are the host.
Yeah.
Well, the co-host, but the host who clicked the button. So yeah.
Yeah, it's working.
Good morning. Good morning, Kurt. How are you?
Morning, Jamie, friend, ally,
Happy New Year.
Co-host. Happy New Year. We've made it. So this is not only 2023, but season 5. I see the shadow of the cat.
Yeah, he's exploring. He's up from his nap. So
so there's quite a few things that we're experimenting with at once. So not only are we trying one thing at a time, we're just trying all of the things at the same time.
That is correct. As one would do if you are friends with Kurt.
That's right. Yeah. It's called No Fear.
Yeah, if anybody has ever hung out with Kurt and I at any moment in time in the past, I don't know, 6, 7, I don't know how long we've known each other, like 8 years now.
I know. I actually was trying to think about that the other day. I couldn't remember.
It's complicated math. But yeah, so what I was trying to say is if anyone has ever hung out with us for any even the shortest amount of time, they will recognize that both of us are always up for a little bit of an adventure, and technology is something that's the shiny object for Kurt, as well as myself, I would probably say. And so in this particular case, we're gonna look at all the shiny objects all at the same time.
Yes. And who knows if we decide to remove some in the future. But yeah, so anyway, let's see. The first one, low-hanging fruit, is we're taking advantage of remote work, things we've learned from remote work. So there's an app called Mural, which I've been using to teach and to brainstorm. So we've got that as sort of a digital sandbox for Jamie and I to play in. And then the second bigger new thing is that we are attempting to live stream the podcast at the same time as we are recording, obviously. That's what a live stream does. We're live streaming to YouTube, Coffee Sketch Podcast, and Twitch, Coffee Sketch Podcast. And then we will, so this is how my brain has been working through the holiday in preparation for this season 5 launch, is to have these live streams out there for people to get engaged with. Hopefully maybe we can attract some interested new followers, but then we'll still also be packaging our audio podcast and some video shorts, or I don't know what to really call them, sips, the Just a Sip thing that we talked about, that we did a couple of last year. So those will get kind of repackaged and put on our audio stream that everybody can access in all those podcast platforms. And then YouTube, the YouTube channel that we have for the podcast, will host all any of the other video based components there. And yeah, so that's the big reveal. I don't know, was there any other curveballs I've thrown at you?
Not today, no. Not that I'm currently aware of. There is no cryptocurrency involved in this, is there? please?
No,
Okay, good.
no, I'm on the fence with that sort of stuff. So, I mean, I'm in on technology, but I'm not all the way in, right?
Right, right, right. Yeah. We're not minting NFTs today while we're live streaming on the podcast. So, oh, geez. Yeah, there you go. Like,
well, there was an experiment last season,
yes, there was.
last resolution. Actually, we could talk about that because we're going to be talking about our new resolutions, which is our traditional first episode of the year conversation.
No, absolutely. Well, it's like and I was hoping that we would chat about all that as well. But no, this is fun. I'm super excited. We have been brainstorming about some of these things for quite some time, and I'm always glad to have you kind of push us into the pool a little bit. I am not one for the polar bear plunge. I have several Austinites here, friends who always invite me, and it's very nice to be invited, but it is not something that I want to do.
Yeah,
Canadian or not, it's not something I want to do. But yeah,
Quebecois blood.
Yeah, well, it is true. So,
I would pass on that too. No thanks.
But and what's funny though is, of course, this year, when they're like inviting a few more folks, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that sounds like fun. It's like, yeah, that sounds like fun, because this year, like, we had an unseasonably warm, like, New Year's Day, and so it's like, yeah, I mean, this year wouldn't have made that much of a difference, but it's like, I'm not creating any precedents here of me attending in the years where it's like 20 degrees or something like that.
Cherry picking.
Yeah, exactly. Let's be honest. Like,
yeah. Well, stick to the what do you call it? Your guns, I guess.
Yeah.
Stick to your guns.
So on that note, as we've had one of our longer intros,
true.
What's the coffee of the day, sir?
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks for that. Actually, I'm sticking to my guns as far as supporting my local roasters. So Rootless Coffee out of Flint, Michigan. And I know I've shared some, with you in the past, and primarily, right, they started out, they came out of the gates with Damn Fine Cup of Coffee, which is our fun reference to Twin Peaks. But I have to say, now they have, a variety of flavors that are out there. I believe my favorite is the one I'm drinking right now. And I did this thing if you can watch my hand, I did this thing when buying it. I was going like this, hovering over Damn Fine and this one called Berry Kiss. And I was like this, and I selected the Berry Kiss because it has this really interesting aroma. I mean, it's very fruit like scented, like tart, semi-tart berries. I don't even know what to call. And then the first few sips have that flavor in it. And I actually asked, I think I talked about this before, but I've asked Sean and the guys at Rootless, do they actually do something with fruit to make the beans taste like this? And it's just a process of the roasting. Somehow the characteristics of the coffee they use in it results in this sort of fruity flavor.
Kind of pulls that flavor to the top, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's kind of that chemistry is kind of always sort of surprising to me. But anyway, so that's what I'm doing. I selected that. I'm going with it for now. And it's fun. I'm gonna have to send you some. You probably haven't had any yet. So
I haven't had that one yet. And I was gonna say, like, two things on that is, like, you have two hands, right? So you could have
buy both.
You could have hovered and and gone for the treat. But well, as you were describing, sort of talking with the rootless roasters there, and it made me realize that one of the things that I still have on my like list of things I would like to try and do or try is, and it doesn't necessarily need to be here in Austin. It could be somewhere else. I mean, there might be a better location for it, but there is one coffee location here in Austin, and now, of course, it just like just right out of my head. But they have like almost like a sommelier, where they kind of walk folks through the process of the roast. I mean, and I've like you, I've worked on Austin Java's, one of Austin Java's locations. And so, I know that you've worked with the Rootless folks on their equipment from an architecture side. So, been there, seen all those kinds of steps, but certainly didn't get into it from a flavor profile and things like that, like you're talking about with them. And I think that would be really interesting to, similar to going, I guess, to a distillery, for a whiskey tasting, or a winery for a wine tasting. There is coffee tastings, and sort of learning a little bit more about that kind of coffee process, and from the folks who do it and are experts in it. I think that would be really interesting, and maybe that's our like guide trip. Maybe we need to add that to like a guide trip thing, in 2023. So just putting that out there.
That's a good idea. My wife would probably appreciate that versus say doing like the whiskey trail.
I didn't say that it had to be the only thing, but
Excellent. Good concept. I'm in.
Okay.
2023. So what are you drinking then? What are you putting on the?
I am, as much as I would be supporting the the local coffee scene just as you do, and I try to as best I can. I got enticed in the supermarché, and I saw it on the top of the shelf, and it was like a lonely bag, and I was like, am I seeing that? Am I tripping here or something? Because I was like, how could that be here? And I don't know if it was like a plant, because later on there's a story to that. But
that can
yes.
You don't have Tim Hortons down in Texas, do you?
Well, funny you should say that.
Does it remind you of Canada?
It does. I mean, the so many times when you call home and you talk to an aunt, uncle, cousin, they're like, oh yeah, well, we just came back from Timmy's and had a coffee and da 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 and whatever. Or we met up with so and so, and had a cup at Timmy's, and it's like, okay, so it's always sort of in the back of your head, and
Sure.
and it is very emblematic, of Canada, and watch a hockey game, it's on the boards, of course. So I saw it in the store, and I was like, oh man, like, and the beauty of it, there were 2 bags. So of course, bought one for myself and then bought one for my folks. They thought it was it was like I was bringing gold to their house. I mean,
yeah, that's awesome.
But as you ask about, like, do we have it down here? Apparently, like, Tim Hortons is like maybe like trying to sneak it into stores or something like that, because I read a newspaper article about a week after I bought this bag, or these bags, and literally they are trying to expand into the Texas market with actual locations, physical locations. And I was like, that's crazy, but all right.
Well,
maple syrup it is. So here we go.
People just don't know what they're missing.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Yeah.
For me, growing up on the East Coast, it's sort of the Dunkin' Donuts is kind of like the soft spot for me. However, Dunkin' Donuts is pretty widespread now. They have them here in Michigan, and but so I'm going to say that it's different back home. You got to go to the Dunkin' at home on the East Coast,
right?
Versus say, and I'm not saying that having a Tim Hortons pop up in Austin is going to be less than,
right?
But
you might find me there, is what you're saying.
That's right. Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's cool. Good find.
Yeah,
it pays to look around a little bit,
just a little.
Should we test our screen share capabilities?
Yeah, so I think it's time to screen share and maybe talk a little bit about resolutions, or maybe our word for the year if we're doing words.
Yeah, I'm going to make you go first with that, because I will have a word, but I do have a resolution concept. So, the rainbow hands. FYI, we got our first chat, except it was like a spam.
Yeah.
So does that mean we've made it?
We've made it. We've got bots tracking us now, so that's good.
So here's our mural, our new mural space. Hopefully if you can see it, and actually
I totally can see it.
So it's working. There's nothing like a little pressure to force Kurt to figure out his tech problems, because up until there it goes. I spoke too soon. Can you hear me?
I can totally hear you. So what happened? Right. What happened there, buddy?
That is the problem that I've been having. Is I share a screen and it crashes. So
I saw it. It looked good.
And so there's strike one. So I know when I've done this with students is perhaps you could share your screen and see if that won't crash. So what I was saying, I don't know how much of that we'll still get, because it's all still recording and so seems to be still streaming, but somehow my share capabilities just overwhelm. And I wonder if it's somehow I'm not using my computer to its optimal potential. All the money I've spent on this machine, and maybe my hardware is not being
optimized,
sort of divvying up the resources well enough. But I've been in Zooms where if someone else shares, it doesn't crash. So if you don't mind popping it up there, it still should work just fine. If I can put that responsibility on you.
Yeah, you just didn't want to have to deal with it. Can you see that?
Yes, I can. And actually, this might work out good, because if you're what am I trying to say? If you share the mural, then I can monitor the chat, and that way we're like using two screens at once. So far so good. Right? You can still hear me?
No. Can you still hear me? Yes, I can still hear you, buddy.
Remember what we said about technology, just throwing it all at the wall and seeing what sticks? Yeah, so yes. There we go.
This is that day.
So we had our first glitch, but that's okay. Thanks for sharing. Maybe, this might be a good, here's a word. Now I've got a word now.
Okay, good. Well, good. Because then I can, then I can do what I'm doing.
My resolution word is delegation.
Oh,
Is now Jamie's going to have to do some of the tech lifting in order for us to make this happen. But on and that's not a joke, you know, it's a little bit of seriousness, you know. Let's
I know.
share the
I know.
share the lift. But anyway, so on the, I guess it's something that is definitely a hot topic right now, or it's probably been so maybe for the past 6 months, at least in across my radar screen. But is AI, right? You know, so the concept of artificial intelligence, and this will be fun segue because I know you and I talk a lot about our affinity for dystopian futures and things like that. But so at the moment, AI is all the rage with graphics, you know, making drawings and images, so visual images. Now there's like, you know, a text AI that I've also been tinkering with that Chat GPT. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh yeah.
But it's definitely making waves, and we're not going to talk about that really today. But actually, I can't. Most of the time, I log into it now. It's like it's too full. It's too many people using it. So now it's, you know, honestly, it kind of is creating a little disinterest on my end because I like to be able to tinker, and if I can't tinker, then, you know. Anyway, so so my resolution and is more, it's not to dive into the deep end and make everything an AI integration, but for me it's to kind of think about how can we use AI and these sort of automations to improve our workflow and still create a little sense of authenticity. And I'm not knocking those that, you know, are all in on the AI thing, but, you know, there's something to think about from an architect standpoint, right? That's kind of my angle on it. And anyway, so the image on the left here, that my image, not the drawing that Jamie's live sketching for us, but the sort of sepia toned sketch of a microphone and a pen and a little bit of coffee stains on the paper is generated by an AI tool called Midjourney. And I ran through a few prompts, you know, kind of testing it out, and just selected this one image out of Midjourney, and it was just kind of surprisingly interesting of a sketch because I wasn't really sure how well it could render. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I'm sure everybody's like, I don't know how that works, or some people probably do know how it works. But my point is, I didn't know how it was gonna. If I told it make it sketchy, like how sketchy, how hand drawn looking would it look? And to me, it looks pretty good. I don't know. I mean, you know, Jamie can be also throw his opinion in there, but at the same time, which has been most fun to watch, is that Jamie's drawn his own version to the left, which is, you know, although, you know, not pen to paper, which is what Jamie is world renowned for his coffee sketches, but because I forced him into mural, he's using maybe fingertip to you know, tablet screen in order to draw his own rendering of this. So which is cool. So I appreciate you doing that while I talk. So anyway, so that's my kind of take on it. I know the other image is from you on the right. It kind of segues to your resolution, but yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about this year. I'm sure there will be kind of a lot of new things and evolutions of this AI and tools for.
Yeah, I think it'll certainly be, you know, something that we talk about more. and probably this year. I think that there's, as I know you're well aware, but I think it's becoming a debate of the authenticity of this. Does this do these technological changes? Are these the innovations that phase out the artist? Is there is this something that phases out the architect even? I've seen quite a number of conversations where folks are trying to debate the ability of and there's a multitude of different programs, the DALI and all these different ones, who create renderings, and these sort of a lot of them, folks were sort of playing with the concept of like, oh, and it's sort of this dystopian reality and these kind of mixed worlds and all this kind of stuff. But then people started to dial it in a little bit, and they were like, oh, well, maybe I can just render this project and come up with 15 different versions, and I'm going to pick one, or two or three, to show a client. And it's like, well, okay, so is that your work anymore? And I think some of the criticism of it is that it's a pretty picture, just like a rendering is. And you and I have talked about this too, is that the rendering itself is telling a story. It's convincing. It's trying to be convincing, just like the sketch. And I think the quality of a sketch, you were sort of saying that what my thought was on the AI generated image, is it sketchy enough? And I think it's almost too sketchy. It's trying to be a sketch. And it's what's funny about it too, is that, some of the moves about it are, intentionally trying to make sure that it's a sketch. The little bulbs that are kind of coming out of the top of the mic, the intentional, drips and drabs of ink on the page, as opposed to cross hatching it or something like that. There's an intentionality that it's trying to make sure it's a sketch, and that the coffee, of course, it's picking up on the color, which I like. I mean, it's not a bad rendering, but I think that is it a drawing? Probably not. I wouldn't consider it one. So I think that that's sort of the fine tuning that a lot of folks are getting into. And if you extrapolate that back out to what I was saying about architects using this or designers using this to generate new work, there's still I think there's still at this point a skill that needs to be involved, and kind of an understanding of what you're drawing, and why, and why one is, and then at the same time also being able to critique it and why one is better than the other, kind of asking those questions. Do you want a machine, and a machine learning situation deciding what's right and wrong? Is that, I mean, not saying that, a drawing or a design is right or wrong, but, to simplify it, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. I think that as a tool, absolutely, let's figure out how to make it, useful. But I still think that there's a definite human creative component to all of this, that is, I think, going to, be a debate for a little bit longer.
Yeah. Excuse me. The one funny aspect of this image that kind of struck me was that this thing on the left kind of looks like a pen or a microphone. Like, it's not really like, the object down to the left, like if it was like a handheld microphone, because it doesn't really look like a pen. Like, it doesn't really look like either, even though there's that old timey microphone to the right of it. It almost looks like there's a cable coming out of nowhere to like another microphone.
Yeah, there's a lot of cables and there's a lot of microphones in this image. And if you look even into the background, there's a whole nother mic, like a KGB mic or something, that's like poking out from the bottom of the tablet there.
Yeah. Yes, I see that now.
And it's kind of like, well, who are we miking up here? Goodness.
But then it added, like, I don't know why it felt like it added the picture in the background of a sketch of some person in a chair. Like, I don't know what that it's maybe like Entourage or
Well, and did you catch though that the beauty of it is that it doesn't know that people sketch on paper? Like it doesn't seem to know that. Like it's sketching it on a tablet in the background, and
Oh.
that's the more completed sketch. It's like,
Yeah, with the forward facing cameras that are kind of like poking out of there or something.
right, yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate your feedback. I think, I always thought of, and I will jump to your drawing but I think what a great tool that would, if they could make it work, is that if we could use our hand, just, as we were trained in architecture, to draw, and then that drawing is then, say, converted into the hard line construction drawing set or something, so you can kind of use your intuition and that hand-eye coordination and draw something, and then it converts, like, say, your sketch on the left into something a little more hard-lined that could be fabricated or built or construct, I don't know. Anyway, that's
Well,
hopes
I
and
think what
dreams.
you're sort of describing, I think, like, I think of the word augment. It's like step one, Kurt comes up with an idea and starts to work through a series of process sketches or drawings in the computer on a piece of paper, whatever, and then the collaboration ends up being with the AI, and it's able to augment your work, and then you're able to re-engage it, as part of that process. That's different. To me, that's exciting. That to me would be exciting, because at that point you've got you're tapping into a library of information, to help your work, and letting the machine learning, kind of go through permutations that, in a different way than you would. Because like we've talked about instinct with drawing and kind of a feeling, all of that is incredibly difficult to describe. It's a creative process, it's a creative act. If we dial it into what you're talking about, you're not losing that. You're allowing the AI to augment your creative act. You have a different starting point. And
Yeah.
typing a couple words into a prompt isn't a starting point in my mind. That just sounds like a weird first year design project.
Yeah.
Design a retreat for a poet, who lives on a mountaintop, and there's pine trees in the background, and like DALL-E would be like, and like, here's 17 versions of that.
Yeah.
Did you like my?
Yeah.
That's the computer thinking right there.
Right.
Sound effects. We need a sound effects guy. Don't you have a brother or something?
Yeah, sound guy. Yes, I do have a brother. I've always wanted to have like a couple of canned sound effects, but we'll have to work on that. That did not get into the 2023 budget for copies.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Next year.
We'll add it to the wish list. let's even memorialize it with a post-it note. Slap it right there. There you go. Sound effects. So how about this? The photo on the right is from your feed, right? I believe.
Yes.
I pulled it from there, and it's not a Banksy, right?
It's not. No.
Kind of a piece of mural art that has some Banksy vibes, urban, like, say, mural art integration with sort of found objects, from buildings, which I always kind of appreciate. how this, in this case, the snake is kind of tied to the pipe that's coming out of the wall, and then there's a little kitty down there, standing on the curb or the sidewalk. But I pulled this and thought it would be interesting to talk about, only because in the winter break I was visiting said brother, and he lives out in San Diego, and the Banksyland exhibit was going on. The traveling Banksyland exhibit was in San Diego right that weekend. And so we got some tickets and went over to there and just to check it out. And it was interesting. I didn't post any pictures yet. I took a couple of sketches, which I actually should take pictures of those, of some of the stuff I saw. But anyway, so I saw this on your feed and I thought, let me grab that and then, kind of throw it up there. But how does that reflect on any of your resolutions?
Well, I think it's a reminder, and that's not necessarily my word, but it's I think that I have to remind myself, and just like anybody, who, just like anybody, I'm a creative. You're a creative. And there's going to be days and weeks and sometimes months or longer where you don't feel it. And not just that you don't feel it, but you also question it. It's a little bit like imposter syndrome, where you've accomplished some things and you're proud of your work, or what you do or what you like to do. And people seem to respond to it. It gives you joy. But then, when you stumble, or if you kind of get away from it, or if you get distracted from it, or if you get sort of self-critical about it, you kind of have trouble re-engaging it. And I think that that's a little bit of what I've been experiencing kind of at the end of the year. And so what I've, intentionally tried to do is you kind of give myself a little bit of grace. And I think that's sort of the word for me is, but it's giving myself grace as a creative, as an artist, and reminding myself that I'm an artist. I think that's the one thing that's been the hardest thing for me to trust and accept about myself, is that, yes, I'm an architect and I'm very proud of that accomplishment. And I love architecture, and I can't imagine not being in this practice or this profession. But at my core, I'm an artist. And I think that journey is one that's really circuitous. And so, for me, I think I have to give myself a little bit of grace to stumble or to question. And, on a walkabout in a small Texas town, seeing, a mural on the wall kind of in a little hidden spot, it immediately brought me joy. And immediately made me smile. And that's the kind of thing that I need in my life. And knowing that person did this work, and that's my reaction as the observer, I like to flip it and say, well, I do that for other people too, I think, and I do that for myself, I think. So I have to trust that, and I have to kind of give myself, the space and the grace to do it. And so I think that's where there's going to be a lot more art from Jamie this year.
Sure. Well, I look forward to it. Thanks for sharing. I think I totally appreciate that. And I think you're right. A little bit of grace, in that, and from my end, as the often observer of your sketches, I'm always appreciative. I've enjoyed them. I'm sure all of our fans are probably aware that that I'm a big fan. Hence why we pursue this thing called the Coffee Sketch Podcast. But thinking I've been doing a little thinking too in the winter break, just about the fact that it is now season 5, as in 5 years of, or the 5th year. I don't know how you want to. We're in our 5th year of doing this, right? Talking, recording, sketching, trying to share it with others. I mean, in general, we're both passionate about sharing what we know, and not letting it sometimes can be a little rough around the edges, but not ever too precious or pretentious about it. Just wanting to get our thoughts out there and share them with people who could benefit from it, especially in terms of architects or future architects and people that are interested in the process. So anyway, what are you I'm trying to figure out what you're figuring out there.
I'm listening, and I'm trying to, and I somehow made like a weird extra thing. It's like, oh, there you go.
Yes, part of the experiment of using new tools. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to what you're so here, I'll give you a little tip. So just click on the post-it. You can type in the post-it.
Yeah, I did that, and it made that weird thing.
Well, no worries. But yeah, so anyway, so yeah, I think maybe we'll even see some impromptu mural art from Jamie, similar to this cat and snake.
Well, yeah.
But yeah. You grabbed
yeah,
you're getting all the tools going.
I'm working on all the tools. So sorry. Just like at that, and it, with that, I think that sort of brings us to the end of now we both kind of gone into the tech rabbit hole. But I just want to say, yeah, I appreciate all the encouragement. The thing that sometimes you see the sketches before they're ever posted. They're like a text message, and it's like, hey, what do you think about this? And so that doesn't go that doesn't go unnoticed. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thanks for our episode 1 of season 5.
Season 5.
So now we're still live.
We are still live.
I know where to stop. So I guess you want a little tutorial here. If you double clicking your mouse starts a post-it, and then you can just start typing.
Well, and that was the thing, is I did that, but I think my problem was that I ended up moving the post-it.
Yeah.
So I made the post-it and then moved the post-it, and then it thought, oh, he just wants to move the yellow box around. So that was my.
That's all right. Yeah, you get familiar. Like, for example, if you double click, start typing, then you hit tab, you can start
it's not doing it again. I just did that one, and
oh, well,
weird. Okay,
maybe I could see on your screen that you're using the older version of Mural.
Oh,
so there's a new interface, I think, in the upper right corner. You can I can't see your screen anymore, but anyway, that's no big deal. You just want to have these arrows. You like these arrows, huh?
Yeah, those were fun. It's like flowchart.
Yeah. I got them down here too. So that was cool. That was great. You want to do, oh, check it out. We have our first real fan on chat.
There's a person.
Yeah, it's Chris Novelli out of the Massachusetts area. So he's a friend of mine on Entree Architect. So we're in the same mastermind. Or ASG Architect Small Group. I think they're trying to phase out, the term mastermind. But anyway, welcome.
Yeah,
Chris.
you don't want to be a mastermind. I mean, that sounds very pretentious. There's a level of pretension there, Kurt.
Yeah, I gotta get away from that.
Yeah, well, I mean, your word is delegation, so that also has a level of pretension to it. It's like, I don't need to do that.
Yeah, I gotta still get better at forgetting or remembering not to say mastermind, but we still not fully phased out. Anyway, Chris is great. He's a cool guy. I would imagine he and Jamie would get along pretty well, just swimmingly.
I mean, I know who he is. Well, I mean,
oh, you do?
Like digitally, but I don't necessarily. Yeah, I'm aware of that moniker, but you also know that my Achilles heel is that I can, as it's like names and faces. That's not very good. Not like information wise, like I can start to tie people to information, stories, technical information. Good with that. Names, faces, not so much. Yeah.
Is it a face blindness?
I don't know. I mean, it's just yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just like a nervous thing or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It happens to me too. I have to work on it. When we did so much face-to-face stuff with our AIA and we met all kinds of people, I would stand there, literally shake somebody's hand. They'd say their name, it would go in this ear and right out the other one. And I would forget their name instantaneously. And somehow, because my brain was focused on the handshake and the smile, that I couldn't figure out how to tie the extra part of like the person's name. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, I said this to somebody one time and they were like, oh, well, they had all these like techniques and I'm like, I'm not sure. I mean, I appreciate them like sharing all that information with me, but they're like, oh, well, you need to put your name tag like on the side. And I like, even now I'm like all mixed up because they're like, well, when you reach out to shake somebody's hand, you want to have your name tag not on the side of your body. That it's like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, there's some interesting attempts or tricks to make your memory work better. I don't know.
Yeah, and then my dad can remember like people he knows from like childhood and like all of their kids' names and like, I mean, it's just craziness. So it's definitely not a genetic thing because he probably has never forgotten a name of anybody he's ever met. But yeah.
Well, that means that you're capable of learning.
I am capable of learning. I have time yet. Yes.
It's not genetic.
No.
Oh, the one thing
so is this like the interlude? Is this like where we go get another cup of coffee? Like, what is this?
It can be. Although if you leave, then I'll have to talk to the audience by myself. Do you need more coffee? Do you want to do the one more?
We can do one more. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, at this point, I wonder, do you want to do we can do like station identification as the intro again, right?
Oh yeah,
our old intro as the way to kick off, say, part 2.
Yeah, you actually, I mean, because you actually even scripted it, so it's like, you probably have it there. Like,
Oh, that you mean that script? Oh, I'm not
well,
gonna. I don't want to do
hey,
that.
hey, man, I don't know. You threw it out there, so
I meant like the "Hey Jamie" part.
oh yeah. Well, yeah, for Chris, since he's sort of seeing and hearing this, he's probably off doing something else, and it's like, um, but we do a countdown, like Kurt usually does it, and then he goes, because
Hey Jamie.
yeah, because if anybody who's ever noticed, like, I think there is only one episode where, in our 104 episodes,
105.
105.
Yes.
We definitely know the numbers, and that's something we're not going to mention on the broadcast. There's a whole underlying story behind the numbers, but our consciousness about them, other than being able to relay it to folks. But yes, I think only one. If this was like a trivia night, it'd be like only one episode does Jamie actually say hello first. So there's a reason for that. That's the beginning and end of our scripting right there.
Yeah. And we know how well that went, right?
Yeah, God, we just talked about that for like 2 minutes. Like, what are we doing?
That's all right. Well, the beauty of the live stream. So I mean, so I'll let you know.
How's
Chris
that
is
cat
still
doing?
there.
How's that cat doing in the background?
That thing?
Yeah.
It's not a cat, man. I'm allergic.
Okay.
It does look like a cat, huh? If it was a cat, it'd be the cat that I would have.
Like just completely sedentary.
Zonked out.
Yeah.
Very round. Fat cat. So Chris is still there. He's getting another cup of coffee to join us.
Oh, good.
So
good.
He's skiing because he's in New England, where they actually may have snow, whereas in Michigan it's like 40 degrees. So, well, it says 32, but it doesn't feel very cold. So, anyway,
54.
you want to do? You've got 54.
Yeah,
that's pretty chilly for Texas, huh?
Well, yeah,
it's no ice storm.
It was like 80 at the beginning of the week. So, I mean,
wow,
or high 70s. So, yeah,
it's quite a swing. We should probably do a shout out. You want to actually
to the weather?
Shout out to the weather. I don't think that would be. That's what do you say? Inappropriate, given that there are climate change has impacted some of our friends on the West Coast.
Oh God, yeah.
So not to make light of it, So, but yeah, it's kind of wild. I actually have teaching a grad section in a sort of lab format, and the grads are all online, so they're all over the country. Actually, some are in Canada, so we have international. Yeah, Tim Horton.
Ask him if they're at Timmy's.
At Timmy's, yeah. Are you joining class from Timmy's tonight? I have one student in the Bay Area, north of the Bay, near-ish. Well, let's see. It's like nearest to Sacramento or something.
That's not near the Bay. That's
well, she's been closer. I think it's Petaluma, which is just over. She was showing me the map, but anyway, she was sort of pointing out like where she says she's had some minor flooding, but then other, it's not as severe as some of the other places that have, with this new term, atmospheric rivers. So she's kind of survived a little bit there. But anyway, all right. So, well, let's jump into it because Chris is here or on the chat. So he can at least give us some feedback and say, oh, quit jibber jabbering. Oh, you did jump right into it. Well, thanks, Jamie.
Yeah. See, this is the delegation part.
It's fantastic. And you jumped right into this sketch.
Yeah. Mastermind.
Mastermind. I will never live that down. I will never
No.
live it down.
No.
I'm getting a little hungry, so gotta hurry this one along. So thanks. So Jamie and I, as we mentioned in the last segment, last episode, is that we are pushing right into the new year with all kinds of new technology, and I gotta say it now that it's all being recorded. So it's recorded forever. Is we started using Mural, and today is like Jamie's first day in Mural. And what does he do? Is he sketched something, and I can't tell you how happy I am that I brought Jamie into a piece of technology. As we know, there are varying degrees of success in that for both of us. And the instinct kicks in, and Jamie draws a beautiful sketch with his fingertip, I believe, or maybe a little bit of both, mouse and fingertip. But anyway, so this is a great way to, I think, I mean, this couldn't have turned out any better to start off this season. We do our historical resolutions episode, and then we move into some sketches, brand new, fresh. I mean, this couldn't be any fresher than the sketch you're seeing that happened, well, at this point, maybe about a half hour ago. Yeah, it's one of the, I mean, my screen is still, just emanating the newness of the sketch. Anyway, so
wow, you really built that one up. I mean,
yeah.
it is a crappy sketch, but
I don't think so. Although I think this little squiggly line, is that an accident line?
That was an accident line, yes.
Or is it the cloud?
No,
could move
I mean,
over here.
I could see if I can do the clouds. Let's see if I can do the clouds. So,
but so you drew a little shed building with a nice little meandering path. The perspective is what I'm impressed with the most. You have this little pathway approaching the building that you designed, and see, now it's even getting richer with the backdrop, So, but I'm not trying to encourage Jamie to forget old trusty sketchbook and pilot pen, unless we may threaten pilot pen to sponsor us and we'll just use Mural if they don't send us some pilot pens.
Yeah, gotta resupply.
But while you're drawing that, I wanted to shout out my friend, also family. It's my wife's cousin, Sam. Sam is a devotee and devoted listener of the Coffee Sketch podcast. And he's currently a student at Michigan State University. And he's told me, and we just saw him over the holiday, and he said, he's missed us, and he loves listening to the podcast as he's walking to class, and maybe in class, but I don't condone that, but
Right.
So and I think I gave Sam a shout out here. Now, he also is a big time soccer fan, football fan, which I think we've talked about that, Jamie.
Yes, we have.
I believe he's a fan of your nemesis team.
Yes.
But that's okay.
I think he's a City fan, and just about a week ago, it was the Manchester Derby, and so Manchester United versus Man City, and Manchester's red, yeah.
What? So
I think he's a City fan, isn't he?
I think.
Okay.
I'll admit I don't know all the names. You know, isn't there like a team in Liverpool
Yeah,
that's well
there's
known?
more than one in Liverpool. Yes. Uh,
I think I learned the most while watching Ted Lasso. So that's
you know that that's not real, right?
wait, what? Really?
Yeah.
So well, now I got to start over. You know, I got to reassess my whole life now. You deflated the Ted Lasso. Have you
Yeah.
not watched Ted Lasso?
I have not.
Are you gonna boycott?
No,
It's
no,
actually
no,
a
no,
very good
no,
show.
no. I've heard it's very good. Um, and so no, it was one of those things. It's like I just was like I didn't have Apple TV
Yeah.
and then or Apple Plus or whatever the hell. And it just wasn't on my radar. And then it came out and everybody started raving about it. And it's one of those ones where, you know, when a series like, you know, people found it, it started to get hyped, and then you realize like, oh, I might be interested in that. And you look and it's like, they are so many episodes in. Do I really want to binge? And yeah, so I didn't. But it's there. It's still waiting there for me. So
Oh yeah, it's not
um,
going anywhere. Actually, the third season, then final season, is coming out in
see now,
spring.
now you just ruined it for me again, because it's like you've added a whole. I didn't realize that they were already up to 3. So
Well, it's not out yet, but
okay, so I got 2
I mean,
seasons to catch
I'll
up
tell you
on.
this much. I know we actually I've been dying to talk to you about it and have this complete tangent from our sketch, but um it's so good. And you know, Danielle is a avid and voracious reader. She loves books, right? So
Yes.
she spends a lot more time than I do reading and reading for pleasure. And then we get together after, you know, at the end of the day, and we'll watch a couple episodes of things and stuff like that. So Ted Lasso, the show, is so good that we watched both seasons twice. And
Whoa.
Danielle
Whoa.
never watches anything
Whoa.
twice.
Yeah.
She
That's
would probably even watch it a third time. I mean, it's that good.
that's a different level of endorsement for you, I have to say, from you both. So I will take that to heart, and I will try and report back that I have watched a couple episodes. So
You know, anyway, yeah. So anyway, that was a fun kind of
I have watched
seg-
I have watched Welcome to Wrexham though.
Oh,
Um,
I want to watch. I haven't yet. We haven't
I-
watched that.
I did complete that and have tried to encourage others to watch it. So
Now that one isn't that formatted more? Is that a documentary?
kind of, yeah.
It's based so Ryan Reynolds and Mac from Sunny in Philadelphia, Rob McElhenney,
Yep.
right? So they co-own a soccer team, a football club, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it is.
Yeah.
It's not like dramatized. It's
I mean, it is dramatized, but
there's a little bit of
well, I mean, it's the two of them. I mean, I think dramatize anything,
like
you know.
ham it
So
up.
yeah, they ham it up, of course. But no, it is a I mean, it is a documentary in style format. You know, real short episodes. So there's themes, of course, with it. So it's fun. I mean, you know, and it's a historic club in Wales, and then their pitch, their field, their stadium is one of the oldest active stadiums in the world. And so, but it's in like complete disrepair and all these other things. So, there's some elements of infrastructure and the team dynamic and the coach and the fans and the supporters and, the bar next door and the American owners and, all this kind of stuff. But they're trying to get the team on track, and also get them out of one of the lowest divisions of soccer or football in England. Because the English system has a promotion relegation, so you can move up from one.
I know about relegation because Ted Lasso taught me.
Ted Lasso taught
how,
you, yes.
how relegation works.
Yeah. So this docudrama is all about that.
Wow, that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's I think for the kind of the casual fan, it's got a bunch of different ways to kind of get into it. But I've enjoyed it.
So does
something different.
do all football clubs have a bar next door? Is that like a just a thing, like a requisite?
I think they all want a bar next door.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Again, Ted Lasso's team has that local pub.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the funny thing about where, like here in Austin, with Austin FC, we've talked about them, is that that was sort of the big question. Okay, where are you going to build this brand new stadium, and then what's it going to be near? And the semi-pro team, or kind of Division 2 or 3 that used to be in Austin years before, they played in a historic Art Deco stadium, actually a landmark, historic landmark in the city of Austin, football stadium, and conveniently right next door was a bar. So you would oftentimes find the coach or whatever kind of in the bar afterwards, and but yeah, and I mean literally around the corner. That's a completely different part of downtown from where the current stadium is. But in fast forward to today, so Austin FC has a bunch of breweries. So there's a big craft brewing scene here in Austin, and so the march to the match is from one of the breweries over to the stadium by the supporter group. So of course.
Yeah, that's cool. They do that here in Flint too.
Yes.
It's not very far from a couple of favorite spots yes, there you go. The Flint
City Bucks.
The City Bucks. They're actually pretty good. Still, they remain good. So anyway, yeah, I think so. I've been to the bar. There's 2 bars that people kind of converge from, and they got their drums and it's fun. It's fun to see that locally. Here in Michigan, it's not really I don't think it's a well-known soccer state, but actually, to segue, let's do a ham-fisted segue that Kurt likes to do. Is Chris asked if either of us have tried sketching on an iPad. Chris says he has not, but has been hearing good things since the last generation of Apple Pencil came out. And so I know I haven't done it since a long time. I think I had an iPad 2 or 3 ways back, and a more simple, there was no Apple Pencil back then. So I had like a stylus that really didn't have much, technology in it. I actually was inspired by our friend Laura Teagarden to give it a try. She was, all her ARE sketches like she does with an iPad. And so
for the book and all that.
Yeah. And so I tried it. And then we eventually, as the iPad got older, we kind of sold it. And so I don't have one anymore. But I am kind of intrigued by some of the new, I don't know if Jamie's followed any of the tools or the hardware that Apple's been creating, but I'm kind of interested in giving it a go. I have a lot of students, and I can say this to Chris, is I do have a lot of students that have the nice iPads with the Apple Pencil, and they do seem pretty adept with it actually does seem to encourage them to sketch. I mean, as much as it pains me to not see them use trace and pencils and pens to sketch on, they are using their iPads to do things with the pencil. So I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
I don't know if you tried any.
I haven't used to answer the question, I haven't used the Apple pen or stylus on the iPad. I did notice that they had a new generation come out, and I did notice, because I'm actually trying to figure out if I'm going to get trying to maybe a separate tablet, and where it's less about, I might not do like an Apple iPad tablet for that. I think kind of it's sort of redundant to my laptop in a sense. But I like the idea of a tablet. And so I've been looking at different tablet formats and then styluses or styli. Anyhow,
What's
yeah, grammar, vocabulary.
stylus?
Yes.
Stylus is
Styluses. I've worked with a Microsoft Surface tablet before, and tried a bunch of different stylus with that. And I think the thing that I have not, and if someone has a great recommendation for it, that would be helpful. And I don't know, it's more of a personal thing, but it's the combination, like the stylus never feels the right weight to me compared to like a pen or a pencil. And so, and a lot of them, at least earlier generations that I fiddled with, they didn't like when I would not hold the pen or the stylus correctly. And so, Kurt, who has seen me sketch in person, knows that I don't always hold the pen right. And so, because I'm always trying to force it to do some other things. And so when I do that, I wouldn't necessarily get the effects that I wanted, and I get a little bit frustrated with it. I know a lot of that has changed because I've been toying with a couple different models. It might be something that I end up treating myself to here in the spring, because I do like the idea of having something that is, I don't think I would ever give up a physical sketchbook, but I like the idea of having something that can, you're sort of skipping the step of taking the photo, skipping the step of scanning something, kind of integrating, the technology with the process. But I want to have the convenience of it. And I don't want to lose sort of that tactile kind of quality. But then on the flip side, I like the idea of, wouldn't it be great to have a stylus, which, that has multiple brushes, and, where, you're sort of taking Photoshop and bringing it into a stylus on the tablet, and not having to do that sort of post-production work purposely later. You can almost kind of flip the process, start to bring it in at the very beginning. And I like that. I like that a lot. So that's because part of the things that I will do kind of in these kind of hybrid sketches is sort of flip back and forth. And oftentimes I'll, if I'm doing like the sketch on the left, that's in here was done on trace, photocopied, printed out several times, because I wanted to do a bunch of color studies. And so what I basically did was sort of block in the image quickly in trace. And then I knew that I wanted to do several color studies of it. So I didn't want to draw it 50 times. I didn't do 50 color studies. But when I say block it in, I'm not drawing the whole image. I'm drawing, pieces and parts of the image. I'm sort of, blocking it in. If anyone uses modeling tools, you sort of set up your camera shot. You block in your objects, and then you come back in and kind of layer on information, to it. Same technique, but doing it from a sketch point of view using a copier. So, and really because it's process driven for me. But at that point, there is sort of a switch from sketch to multiple copies to color study, and then realizing at that point that color study is narrowing itself down to here's 2 or 3 versions of reality that I like. And so at that point, then I will come back with the pen and start to add in a lot more detail to it. And then it becomes this sort of back and forth between mediums that I think that a digital tablet kind of situation would really align with in terms of process.
Yeah, that's that makes sense. Actually, that's probably one of our best segues to the sketches that we've ever done.
Yes.
Well, actually, I should say Jamie's always good at segue. Kurt is not good at segue, but
but don't put me on a segue, because those things like like seeing those people, and just that terrifies me. Just it and not because like I don't want to ride on one, but so I work in downtown Austin, and there's a couple different like tourist locations kind of in downtown, and there's one where people do Segway tours, and like, so I'm going to get coffee, and you always see like the people who have just literally gotten on the Segway, and they're like their instructor is like, okay, so we're going to tour around, but I want to make sure everyone can start and stop and lean forward. And it's like, oh my God, someone's going to die, and yeah, anyhow, that's my worry for other people. Yeah.
I've never ridden one, but yeah, so this is so that's the process of the sketch. It's kind of, I don't know if we've ever discussed that actual process before, or maybe not in so much detail, but that's a pretty interesting and a great kind of how do I put it, demonstration, I suppose, of how these sketches were prepared. And I was at the same time, I was kind of thinking about like, the concept of the tools and technology of, can it be done on an iPad? And I've seen a lot of pretty good artwork, because there's apps like Procreate, which is unfortunate name in my opinion, but it's apparently one of the better and more feature rich apps for like an iPad, in order to draw and then layer and then switch brushes, and I think you can even create your own custom brushes, which maybe Jamie will develop the Coffee Sketch brush pack.
Well, no, I mean, them, and then Morpholio, and there's a couple others that you can do sort of custom brushes, and I think it's really interesting. I mean, I follow a lot of digital artists on Instagram and on Twitter, and what's nice is sort of seeing how some of them either generate their work, or what they're usually typically posting is not their professional work, but their sort of side projects. And so in their side projects, they'll sort of discuss process a little bit, or you see them post things progressing over time, and with a careful eye, you kind of figure out how they're doing it, and kind of the different techniques that they might be employing. I mean, like the sketch on the right, that's all one shot. That's not multiple images. That's kind of working through a discussion with a particular client, and admittedly existing building. Actually, both of these would be existing buildings, but the one on the left is actually existing building that needed a whole lot of work. The one on the right, fortunately, a lot of those design features were already there, but it kind of explaining the concept of how to properly put a sign on this building, how to put where it should go, how a canopy should work in kind of a contemporized context. This one was an old market building in one of our historic downtowns here in Texas, and it actually had an operable fabric awning for the market. It was like a meat market, and then a larger market later on. And so it had an operable fabric awning. All of that equipment and mechanics were all gone, but the transoms were there. They had been boarded up. But all the decorative features at the top of the building, all those existed. Some of them had to be repaired, and we had to kind of talk them through that. But it wasn't really kind of appropriate to come back in with a fabric awning per se, in their case, but to create a new awning, low slung, low slope metal awning, canopy space to protect some of those transom windows, but do it in a form and a shape and a style and a scale that is appropriate for the district. And then the same time, they had one small opening on that side of the building, and the building's not big enough to be, they were converting into a restaurant. So they had all the back of house storage, bar, kitchen, small dining space, and they needed more patio dining to really make that restaurant work from a pro forma standpoint, from a business standpoint. And so we worked with the city to figure out how to do patios, because this particular downtown didn't have any outdoor dining spaces. And then how do you work through a historic wall to create the appropriate size door, art opportunity, mural opportunity on the side of the building. And so this was intended to illustrate this both for property owner, building officials, development office, where it touched on a variety of different things, and really worked. I mean, this restaurant is open now. Was able to go to the grand opening. They had soft open before, and then they had a big grand opening in December. So I was able to go to the grand opening for it. So I was pretty excited.
Oh, that's great. It's yeah, thanks for the detail. I was kind of scanning around the two different sketches as you were talking, and like with the metal awning, I like the idea of new with the old, and mixing those, sensible and compatible materials, but with a new component, right? And so we've talked a lot about historic conditions, historic districts, and how to adapt buildings, and especially like on the right, where it has to be pretty conscious of when you're cutting a hole in the existing wall for a new door, where to make that cut. But then as it basically gives this building plus patio this new life that it didn't have before, which creates the viability and the feasibility, as you were saying. Like, so it's really interesting to hear all the various parties at the table that you're trying to appease, right? The ownership and developer and city, and having making sure that all kind of agree. And so it's great. Thanks for congratulations.
Well, thank you. Well, I mean, and it's something that it's not to make light of it, but it's literally this is our superpower, is coming up, taking all those different facets of a project and coming up with an image or multiple images or diagrams or something visual to really speak to a variety of audiences, help them feel more comfortable about what you're discussing, and or what you're proposing, and and at the same time eliciting more questions. If they do have more concerns, now they can see it, and now they can talk to it, in a more comfortable way. So it's not about having the right answer, and sometimes the sketch just leads to the better answer. And so that's in this particular case, what was interesting was their contractor and fabricator was having a hell of a time figuring out that awning. And so even with the sketch, what was nice was the city and the historic preservation officer kept coming back to the sketch and saying, something's not right about what you're proposing for the building. Look at this sketch. And even though it was sort of two different things, they knew it wasn't right. And then fortunately they were able to kind of bring me back into the discussion. I was like, oh, well, your slope is wrong. Your fabricator is working with this slope, and it really should be this slope. And then suddenly that shop drawing that I'm looking at, I'm able to mark up the shop drawing and kind of help them understand why they instinctively know that it's not like the sketch that they all liked to begin with. And it's not about, like I said, not about having the answer, but it's about kind of creating the opportunity for the conversation to happen. And I've always seen sketches, doing that work for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good. I like that. And actually, it's in the role of being a teacher of architecture to students right now. I mean, that's kind of the key. Sometimes, there is a tendency to kind of one and done is a way to put it, with the students. Like they'll create one iteration from the assignment, right, and say, here's my design, versus understanding the iterative process, as you were describing, how even the sketch is a piece of a continuum from idea to grand opening, and there's a lot of other steps along the way that then take the sketch, adapt the sketch. You talked about shop drawings, and it takes multiple versions of this, not to mention the 50 color copies that you made to like test. And so I hope if any of my students are listening, or when I tell them to listen, they can kind of think about that part of it too, and that it's not wasted effort. I think sometimes the pushback is that they think it's a wasted effort when the interim sketch is not then the final product, and it just stays, so it not necessarily gets tossed aside, but you don't want to. It should be kept, but the interim, the unused sketches aren't necessarily wasted product, is I guess the idea there. So yeah, great. That's a great detailed deep dive into those sketches, really. So thanks again, Jamie.
No, this was great. I enjoyed talking through those. Thanks.
Oh, you know what? Here, let me stop the recording, because that'll be good for the audio. And now the live stream, and I want to thank Chris for joining us. He's still here, still chatting with us, and thank Jamie.
Yeah. See, so now my question for you is, so where are you seeing his chat?
Oh, here. Well, so
yeah, see, that's on your screen.
I don't want
my screen.
Yes,
yeah.
I don't want to share my screen.
No, you don't want to do that. But I mean, it's sort of overloading me, like, overloading me. No, it's just when you said chat, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I started looking for a second, and I was like, no, like that's not. Then I realized, no, that's not the streaming platform that he's working from. So, like, where's that chat?
You could find it in the well, Chris is on YouTube, so if you went to the YouTube channel, you could see that chat. The tool that I'm using to spread this, so it's called Restream.
Right.
So it's going to YouTube and to Twitch, and Restream will pull in both chats into one.
Okay.
But we haven't had anybody come in from Twitch.
Well, no, because that was going to be my next question, was like, does it fold both streams into one chat? Because that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you use Twitch very much? I like that platform a little bit more than YouTube, but I don't know. But it's different.
It's been a bit of an experiment of mine since last year. I've done some videos, of things, and then for this year I thought, well, maybe it'd be nice to just sort of rebrand it to the podcast, and then have it sort of stream out the podcast to anyone who may want to watch it on Twitch. And it kind of dawned on me that like potentially if we want to get real crazy is we could invite people to join Mural and have more people live sketching in Mural and streaming and chatting, but that maybe will be parked. We could park that in the hashtag goals category. But it's
Yeah.
possible. I feel like it could be possible.
Yeah. We'll think about that.
But we baby step into that.
Yeah, no, like on Twitch, like I'll watch some NWSL soccer matches, the women's soccer league. They broadcast some of their games on Twitch. So that was sort of my introduction to it during the pandemic, at least. Now I knew you had the channel, and but I was curious. That makes sense though, that it's sort of coming in through that other stream.
Yeah.
The chat stream, that is.
Yeah. It's that's what remember and then we can call it a day pretty soon here. But remember when I said I texted you like a week or two ago and I was like, I think I figured out how to do this stream live, multiple streams, and I was like kind of like impressed with myself. That's why I was excited. I sent you the text. So now we've done it, except for I can't still share my damn screen. And so I don't know, it was helpful though that you were sharing, because then I can kind of watch the chat until I get like a second monitor or something like that. But I have no idea what setting to tweak to like keep it from crashing. But anyway, that's I guess homework for another day.
Yeah.
So with that, my stomach is growling. So I want to say thanks to Jamie, thanks for any other watchers, and thanks to Chris for engaging.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the prompt on the question was brilliant. So,
and so with that, I will end the stream.